Today I am going to do a project that really utilizes a lot of these scraps. Let's get started. I have this scrap right here, this nice leafy green, and I need to cut this down. So for this, I need to cut this down to where it's about 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I'm going to cut that. And then, since I need to just take out that selvage all the way. And then this is scraps for some other project. This is not necessary, but I'm going to go ahead and clean this up just a little bit. And I think that this would work with 5 1/2. Like my top piece that's ready to go here is 5 1/2 because I basically ran out of space on that particular scrap. So here we go. I've got a square ready to go on there. And then here is a bunch of greens that I am just going to slip this green right here. And I have a nice variety of warm greens and cool greens, so you don't have to worry about that because it's still going to work out really well. And then I also have blues, and what I'm doing is I have 10 different scraps. So 10 different scraps of green, 10 different scraps of blue. I also have 10 different scraps of indigo and 10 different scraps of purple. Let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a wonky 9-pack. And so you probably know how to make a conventional 9-pack already. So for a conventional 9-pack, you basically have your square like this, and then it's just 9 squares, and it's 9 squares that are pretty straight. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can make that. But for a wonky 9-pack, instead of having it be straight, I'm going to have these at angles. And so they're not all going to look like they're exactly the same. And part of what's really nice about that is whenever I line these up, there's not going to be matching seams. I have 10 of these. And so as you can see here, it's kind of short. And so I am going to line these up, and I don't have everything like super exact same size, and that is fine, as long as it's up around 5 1/2 to 5 3/4, because what I want this to finish at is 4 1/2 for the block, for the block unit, I guess. And then once all those blocks are sewn together, then they'll be finished as 4-inch squares inside the final piece. So here we go. I have like roughly 6 inches here. And so this gives me a good idea of like where I can cut. So I can do like around 2-inch area in this area. And so I'm going to have it to where I have it at the 2 inches, and then I'm going to angle it in like this. So this is more than 2 inches from the edge. And that's good because 4 1/2 means that it would actually be more like 1 1/2 inches in that center space. And you may have to do a couple of passes like that just to get that all the way through. And then there you go. You have 2 separate pieces just like that. And then what we want to do is we want to go back and we want to peel this back. Let's see, I feel like that's pretty close to that. I want to have like a good variety. It's bound to happen that in most of these, there's going to be one of these fabrics that occurs twice, and that's okay. As long as I have them kind of away from each other in the block, then that's nice. So I think this looks pretty good to start. So this is pretty simple. You want to have a 1/4-inch seam. I have a seam guide set up. You don't have to have that, but I have that because I find that it helps. I just put them together like that. And then it's just as easy as that, and I just keep sewing all the way through until I have all 10 of these. So here we go. And there's no need to pen. It's one of the wonderful things about this. You don't have to do any penning. And this is a very fast project. Now I'm ready to go ahead and press these. And so what I like to do is I'll just do 2 of them at a time. So I like to leave them chained together. And the reason why I'm doing that is so that it's just a lot easier to just keep them in the order that they were in to start. Just need to do a little bit of a press while it's flat like that. Now, you can go ahead and press these to the side if you want. However, I am going to press these open. And the reason why I'm pressing these open is because it's less layers of fabric, so whenever I'm cutting a whole bunch of them at the same time, it's all going to cut, because the more layers of fabric you have, then the harder it is to get through all those levels. So that one's pretty good. And then I'm going to go ahead and get this one. Okay. So now I have the first two, and I'm going to keep pressing these until I get through all 10 of them. All right, so I have these all set up, and I am ready to cut the other side here. So that is the next thing to do there. And with this, I don't have to, you can already see that this is down, it was looking like it was close to 6 inches before. And so now you can see it's definitely down to where it's looking more like closer to about 5 inches, a little over 5 inches. So I'm just going to position that again to where centered in that 6-inch kind of a zone. It really doesn't matter about the angle here. I can go this way if I want to, or I can go this way. So I think what I will do is I will have my angle tilt towards it instead of looking like it's going a little bit more parallel. And so I'm going to do it like that. And so just, I got one pass there. And then just make sure, there we go. So now that we have these, now I need to just figure out how many back I want to do. So it seems like it would still be pretty good if we went that far back, and then that would look like that, and that would look like that. So I'm going to do just one back. Now, conventionally, if you were forming these up to where it was a dark light, all the way through the 10, then the first round you could just simply go 1, put it to the back, and then on the second round you could just go to like probably the third one, I'm thinking, and then put that one to the back. And so if you do have your scraps organized to where it's pretty even between dark and light, then you can do that. Mine have a lot of very similar values to them, so it's just a fun way to use up the scraps. It's actually one of my favorite ways to use up scraps. So now for the next step is to just go ahead and sew these and iron these, and then we'll move on from there. Now that we have 2 rounds of this sewn up, we want to spin this around into a perpendicular direction. So I'm going to line this up kind of roughly around that, centering around the 6 inches area there. So I'll cut right here, but first, what I want to do, first I want to split these in half, or almost half, like I have 4 here, there's 5, and so I'm going to go ahead and take this many, and I'm just going to line that up, and this will make it so it's not as many layers. So as you can see here, this is why it's good to do the pressing open, because we have all these seams that are on top of each other. And so if we pressed it to the side, we would actually add a lot of extra bulk to the one side that we press to, and it'd be a lot harder to cut. So now that we have that one, I can set that aside, and then I'm just going to put this right here, and then I'm just going to line these up so I have a pretty good idea so I can match up these cuts. So it looks like this one needs to be a little bit further down. So I think, let's see, I could shift it this way just a little bit. There we go. So that works. And then I just line that up. Okay. And that gets that lined up. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and put these guys back on the top here. So now we have the 2 cuts. And so it's just a matter of, like before, just kind of figuring out where we want to have things. So that's 3 back, this is 4 back. So here, this doesn't match anything. So let's see if that holds for going beyond this. And yep, and then going beyond this one, and yep. So I think we're pretty good to go here. So I'm just going to shuffle these right behind the one that I've decided to put on top here to sew on. And now I'm ready to sew these together. Here is that round, the 3rd round. And now I just have one more round to go, and then this will be a wonky 9-patch here. So now it's just sewing these together at the sewing machine. I will have these 10, and then I will be taking all of these scraps that I have and making up the other 3 colors that I'm going to make. So I have a lot of scraps here. All right, here are all the greens nice and trimmed. And I have blues to add to those, and then these are indigos, and then these are purples. And so indigo is actually a frequency on the color spectrum for the rainbow colors of primary and secondary colors. And it's basically between blue and purple, so that's why I have all of these. So some of them may look like they're closer to purple like that one, others may look like they're closer to blue like that one, but I have determined those to be indigo. And so I have 40 of these, so I can go ahead and just get these all nice and organized into some kind of a layout. And right now I'm not too concerned about how I am positioning everything. I just want to get something laid out. And so I'm going to keep going with this until I have a layout that I'm pretty satisfied with. And then I will start sewing these up together. And here it is. I think this turned out really, really well. This ended up being about 16 by 40 inches. So this is the perfect size for a table runner. And so we have 40 blocks here. The nice thing about these is that when you look at this, you really can't even see that they're individual blocks. They just all kind of like mesh into each other. The chaos of all of those angles is reined in by the color scheme that I've done. And so that's really good as well. So I think this turned out really well. I did make one in a larger version years ago that I gave as a gift. And that one, I based that size off of Karen Brown of Just Get It Done Quilts version, where she started out, I think, was like 12 inches and it finished down at like 10 inches, I believe. And so the blocks were 10 and a half inches inside the quilt, finished to 10 inches. And you can make them up really fast that way. But I did notice that doing it that way means that you definitely see those square blocks for sure. And so if you want to have something that just has that kind of extra scrappy feel to it. Also, the benefit of it is that even if you're just a little bit off, this is a great quilt for beginners because you can be a little bit off on those intersections. I'm on most of my intersections. The last row that I did where I joined it all together, I was only really on for about half of them, and then the others I was like, about 1/32, 1/16 of an inch off maybe. And it really doesn't matter because the whole thing, the point of it is within these individual blocks, we don't care about having the seams matched. And so it just makes it to where this is very beginner friendly. You're not going to be super concerned about matching these blocks up to each other and having those intersection points be absolutely perfect.